The sun was high over the dusty outskirts of Redwood Valley, turning the metal of the abandoned warehouse into a blinding silver glare. Inside, a heavy silence clung to the air, thick, tense, and waiting to snap. Grease-stained hands hovered over metal parts, tools lay scattered like fallen soldiers, and frustration simmered like a storm ready to explode. The Hell's Angels, known across the region for their fierce pride in machines and brotherhood, stood circling a massive custom motorcycle. The beast-like bike, painted in obsidian black and chrome, towered under the lights, but its engine was dead. Not coughing, not sputtering, not whispering. Dead. And the men surrounding it. Hard, seasoned bikers who could rebuild engines blindfolded. They were helpless. The monstrous machine defied every touch, every wrench turn, every attempt. And when the leader, Brick Harrison, slammed his fist onto the metal and growled that no biker in the valley could fix it, the entire place froze. But none of them expected the miracle to come from a disabled, forgotten old man walking with a limp and leaning on a wooden cane. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity's ability to surprise us, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps us bring real human stories to life. The story began earlier that same day, long before the warehouse filled with the smell of defeat. On the far end of Redwood Valley, past rows of weather-beaten houses and rusted fences, lived an old man named Reuben Calder. Reuben was 73, with a worn-out knee, a crooked back, and hands that trembled when he reached for things. Yet his eyes still had a spark, soft, steady, and carrying decades of stories that no one asked to hear anymore. He lived alone in a tiny house, its windows fogged with dust, its porch sagging like a tired sigh. Most people barely noticed him. The younger ones whispered behind his back, calling him the limping ghost of Redwood. But Reuben didn't mind. He had lived long enough to know that life didn't always give appreciation at the right time. Every morning, he walked with his cane down the cracked sidewalk, pausing near the old garages and auto shops, peering in with a curiosity that never faded. He had once been a master mechanic, one of the best in the state, back in his youth, but that was nearly a lifetime ago, lost under decades of grief, accidents, and the quiet erosion of hope. That morning, however, something unusual caught his attention. A convoy of roaring motorcycles thundered through the valley, rattling windows and leaving trails of dust in their wake. The Hell's Angels rarely came into town, and when they did, it was never subtle. Reuben watched from a distance, leaning on his cane as the riders glided past like a moving wall of leather and iron. Something about the last bike in the group seemed off. Its sound sputtered, choking on its own power, fighting every mile. And sure enough, just moments later, the convoy made a hard turn into the abandoned warehouse by the outskirts. Reuben felt a strange pull in his chest, as if a forgotten part of him had woken after decades of silence. He tried to brush it off and continued his walk, but the image of that struggling engine gnawed at him like an unanswered call. In the warehouse, Brick Harrison, tough as steel and carrying the reputation of a man no one dared argue with, stood red-faced with frustration. His prized custom motorcycle, a machine he had poured 2 years of sweat and loyalty into, had collapsed on the ride. No matter what his men tried, the engine remained dead. It was more than a mechanical issue, it was an insult to his pride, an attack on everything he believed embodied strength. Hours passed. Sweat dripped. Tools clattered. Voices rose. Nothing worked. Finally, one biker, Jax, wiped his forehead and muttered, "Maybe we need someone older, someone old school." Brick shot him a glare. "There's no one left in this valley who knows more than us." But as fate would have it, the universe rarely listens to pride. While the men argued, Reuben slowly approached the warehouse. He didn't know why he had walked all the way there. Maybe curiosity. Maybe compulsion. Maybe the old instinct that had once made him legendary. Or maybe, just maybe, he simply wanted to feel useful after so many years of invisibility. The bikers froze when they saw him, an old man, limping, leaning on a cane, his shirt faded and his face lined with deep creases. Brick scoffed. "You lost, old man." Reuben swallowed softly. "No. I heard the engine earlier. Sounded like it was crying." He chuckled lightly. Sometimes machines cry louder than people. A ripple of laughter went through the group, mocking, doubtful, dismissive. But Reuben didn't flinch. He had endured far worse than laughter. He stepped closer and gently rested his trembling hand on the seat of the giant motorcycle, closing his eyes as though listening to a heartbeat. The warehouse fell strangely quiet. Even the toughest men there sensed something different, something almost sacred in the way the old man's touch softened the air. Reuben opened his eyes. "It's not dead," he whispered. "It's just misunderstood." The bikers exchanged skeptical glances. Brick crossed his arms tightly. "You think you can fix what none of us could?" Reuben didn't boast. He didn't even look up. "I can try. If you'll let me." Something in his voice, humble, calm, unwavering, nudged Brick's ego aside. "Fine," Brick said. "Give him the tools." With tears pricking his eyes, he nodded. "I'd like that," he whispered. From that day forward, Reuben became the quiet master behind the Angels' machines. They treated him with respect, protected him, cared for him, and learned from him. He, in return, found a family he never expected, rough around the edges, loud, chaotic, but full of surprising loyalty. He became a symbol in the valley, a reminder that greatness never fades with age, that skill doesn't die with time, and that sometimes, the people we overlook carry the greatest wisdom of all. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement keeps these emotional stories alive. Special request, comment, respect for Reuben, if you believe kindness and wisdom can come from anyone, anywhere.